marketing behind supplements is convincing people to go buy the supplements, but it's not educating people as to why they need the supplements in the first place. You're just putting a Band-Aid over it, you're still not addressing the root cause of the situation.
So what are the healing properties of sublimation?
So antimicrobial, so viruses, fungus, yeast, some types of bad bacteria, and it goes after hardcore stuff. I've seen people have success with herpes and HPV and shingles. I would say most people are so tired of suffering from chronic things that are keeping them stuck that they're willing to try it.
What's really interesting is, again, if you go back to that health food store, they'll tell you who manufactures their product and who doesn't. People that aren't manufacturing their product or co-manufacturing, there's nothing wrong with that, some great co-manufacturers. But the brand really needs to take the extra step to go deeper on the quality. I think transparency needs to be driven by the consumer. And if you're a smart consumer, you'll demand transparency.
Welcome to episode 4 of Supplements Revealed. We are approaching the halfway point in our series. By now, I am sure you can see the value. We have a variety of topics, a variety of experts talking about all kinds of things that have profound impact on our lives and on our health. So we have this vision and this purpose in bringing this information to you, understanding what supplementation can contribute to your health in meaningful ways and what things to avoid. I know it's a pretty vast world, and I know that when people walk into shops that sell these types of supplements, they become bewildered. I mean, I'm in this business and it's bewildering to me, so I can imagine how it is for you, which is why we have so many hours of content with dozens of experts, not something that you can just drink up in one session, but something that you want to be able to access easily when you need it, right now or any time into the future. So we have multiple packages, and during this free viewing period, know that they are steeply discounted. So see which one is right for you, order that package, and make sure you have this information available to you all the time. This episode has so much great information in it. There's multiple expert interviews, and rather than waste any more time, let's just dive in. I admire people who have a great vision and then act upon it. One of my favorite people in the world is Dr. Ed Group. Ed is someone who has committed his life to bringing the highest quality supplements to the masses so that they can enjoy better health. He's a person that doesn't shy away from the hard things, and I can tell you that this man is a wealth of information. So this is an interview you want to lean in, be focused, pay attention to. You're going to learn a lot. Ed, I'm excited to have this conversation. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, it's a pleasure, always willing to help and educate and give back and just present any good information I can so people can learn how to live a healthier life.
Great. So let's talk about your background. Like, how did you get into what you're doing today?
Well, it was kind of interesting, actually. My background started out in the cancer industry. Mm-hmm. Never would I have ever thought that I would have ended up doing that. I really wanted to be a heart surgeon. I ended up meeting a guy at a restaurant one night who was heading up a team for cancer research, natural cancer research, because this was in the late 90s, and that's when the big cancer hospitals were exploring complementary alternative medicine. Mm-hmm. And I was taught that, allopathically, coming up through school, that pharmaceuticals were the way to treat everybody, and, natural medicine was witchcraft, and blah, blah, blah. And so this guy really got my attention. He started telling me about the causes of disease and his research that was leading to the root cause of disease. And what he was going to be doing over the next year is he was going to be looking for doctors or looking for remedies that would work on cancer. And so at that point in time, I just felt this overwhelming energy that this is something that I needed to explore a little bit more. I wasn't too sure if that was the direction that I wanted to go or not, so I started asking him questions. I started meeting with him, and we formed a team, and I was part of the research team. And that was before the internet was available, so at that time we had to literally go to the Cancer Control Society meetings and talk and see what was available out there, talk to Burton Goldberg and different people that were in the natural cancer industry that were still alive at that time. And that led us on a one-year journey to determine what is the root cause of disease. And to this day, I always ask the question, why? You know, why should you take these supplements, or why should you not take this, or what is the root cause, or why do you need this, why do you don't need this? And everything was focused around the root cause. And when we were focused on cancer, we realized and we found the root cause of cancer, which was poor lifestyle, poor environment, toxic food, toxic air, toxic water, the accumulation of chemicals and toxins in the system, with the accumulation of stress, unhappiness, anger, fear, all these negative emotions. That combined was, not only did we find the cause of cancer, but we found the root cause of all negative health problems, including mental health issues. And so we were able to link, and we took maybe the top 150 chemicals and toxins that people were breathing through the air, that they were consuming in their mouth, that they were drinking every single day, that they were exposed to on their skin that was soaking in. And we looked and we literally linked every single one of those chemicals and toxins to multiple diseases. Now, at that point in time, the one thing that we still don't know today is, how do those millions and millions and millions of chemicals and toxins that are coming in react with each other inside the body? Because you can see how mercury reacts with aluminum, or you can see how one chemical reacts with another chemical, or you can see how one prescription medication reacts with another prescription medication. But when you put a slew or a soup of thousands, let's say we estimated 500,000 chemicals and toxins a day most people were consuming.
Wow.
Now, you have in one packet of an artificial sweetener 50,000 or so, molecules, toxic molecules of aspartame or sucralose or whatever. So it sounds like a lot, but in reality, it's really not, considering the amount of things and toxins people put in their body on a regular basis.
And not to mention, every body might react a little differently to them. Yeah.
Yes, every body reacts differently, and I've been saying this for a long time. It's scientifically impossible to do a clinical trial or a clinical study. I'm not against them, because I think you can learn a lot of information. But think about it. If you were to do an accurate clinical trial, wouldn't you have to clone 40 people, expose them to the same stress levels every single day, expose them to the same food every single day, expose them to the same sleep every single day? And then everybody's biochemistry is different anyway.
Yeah, that would be perfect control. So we
that would be perfect.
But we can't have perfect control.
But you can still learn a lot from trials, and especially in the natural arena. But in the natural arena, you use so many different things, because you're addressing the mind, you're addressing the body, you're addressing the soul, you're addressing the environment in which the individual lives, you're addressing, your program for somebody in Alaska might be different than somebody's program in Germany or somebody's program over here. So that's why it's really hard to say this one thing works when you're dealing with natural medicine as opposed to mainstream medicine.
Right.
So if you know that the root cause of disease is the accumulation of toxins and negative stressors and things like that, one thing that we noticed when we traveled around and we talked with all these doctors, the most successful doctors, we were looking at doctors that were getting 50%, 60% success rates with everything. All of those doctors were doing one thing. they were detoxifying and cleansing their patients before they put them on really good, effective supplementation.
Right.
And because usually when you're looking at any disease process, why would you not clean everything up first before you start the healing process?
It's only logical.
It's
right.
only logical. So the system that we developed and that other doctors have developed years after years was a basic system of just, when you know that all the chemicals and toxins are coming into the gut first, that's how they're getting in the body. 95% of the time, that's how they're getting in the body. You get toxins through your lungs, and you get them through your skin too, but the majority come in through your intestines. That was the first place that people needed to start. So you start cleansing and healing the gut, then you start cleansing and healing the liver, then you cleanse all of the harmful organisms out of the body, the fungus, the yeast, the mold, the parasites, the worms, the bacteria that's not supposed to be there, the viruses that are not supposed to be there. Once you get all of those out of your body, then the last stage they would do was a chemical and a heavy metal cleanse to clean all the chemicals and heavy metals out of the body. And it was a very simple procedure, right? And it's common sense. Clean and heal the gut, move on to clean and heal the liver, move on to clean out all the harmful organisms that are in your body, and the next step, clean out all the chemicals and toxins and fluoride, chlorine, et cetera, BPA, and all those things that have accumulated in your system for a long period of time. And then work your way into really good plant-based or chemical-free or toxic-free supplementation, which includes the activity, the therapeutic components of the plant or whatever you're giving them in the highest state, so the body can read those energetically and heal itself. But at the same time, educate the individual as to the root cause, because education is a big part of the healing process. If you know alcohol and all these things that are causing your health problems, if you know about those, it's going to be easier to avoid those or replace those with natural alternatives moving forward. So that's how I got started, and that's how we continue to grow and continue to educate and let people know the power of cleansing their body and the power of healing that they have within. Because everybody has a self-healing mechanism. It's just suppressed because of all these things that keep coating it and layering it and layering it and layering it. And so we just peel back the layers with cleansing, peel back the next layer, peel back the next layer, peel back the next layer. And all of a sudden the body says, thank you. Now I can finally heal myself. And so then you give the body all the necessary nutrients, all the necessary things to whatever you're trying to focus on, to allow the body to heal itself. That's really what supplementation and everything is all about. Allowing you to become in charge of your own body and allowing the body to heal itself.
Is there a dimension of this that might be, rather than toxic, that there's deficiency maybe in certain nutrients that can start to trigger some adverse reactions in the body?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody is ever at a state where they have perfect balance of all the minerals, vitamins, fats, proteins. At least I've never seen it. Because of the standard American diet, because people aren't cleansing, because people are not absorbing, utilizing, and metabolizing the nutrients efficiently. And that goes back to the gut and the liver. So you can take all the supplements you want, but if you're not clean, you're probably only absorbing and utilizing maybe 5 to 18% of those. So it's always like you have to take 2 steps back before you take 2 steps forward when it comes to the body and healing the body.
Because a lot of people think that, if I have a deficiency in a vitamin or a mineral or some other thing that I need in my body, it's because I'm not getting enough of it in my diet. But you might actually be getting enough in your diet, but with the toxicity that's in there, you're not absorbing it. So you could be supplementing it, you could be getting it in your food, and if you're still toxic, the absorption doesn't happen, so you have this prolonged deficiency even when you're trying to supplement for it.
I'll even go one step further and say about 15 years ago, we did a study and we had about 50 patients come in and we filled out a health form and evaluation on them, and we did blood work. We analyzed their deficiencies, we analyzed their blood, we analyzed their urine, and more importantly, we analyzed the symptoms that they presented when they came in. So what we wanted to find out was, does the body always present the most serious symptom that the person is dealing with, and how that corresponds to blood and urine and everything else?
Interesting.
So let's say we took the top 3 symptoms that they presented on all these individuals, and we figured if these individuals went to a medical doctor, this would be their diagnosis, because we look at the symptoms. You know, you do a history on the patient and you say this is what the patient has. So then we said, well, let's see what happens if we just don't do anything and we go ahead and run them through a detoxification program. Let's run them through intestinal cleansing, liver and gallbladder cleansing, harmful organism cleansing, chemical and heavy metal cleansing. Let's have them come back in, and let's do a whole nother history like they're coming in as a new patient. Let's see if the diagnosis still matches. Let's see what's going on with their blood work. Let's see what's going on with their urine. And anybody can do this. Any doctor can do this exact same study, and they're going to get the same results. What we found was astounding. When they finished all their cleansing, we did not make any dietary changes or anything like that. We found that their blood work improved. They didn't have nearly as many deficiencies. Blood work improved by 80%.
Wow.
We found that their urine improved. We found that their immune system improved with the white blood cells and all the other cells that we were checking. And the most shocking part of it is we found that they had different symptoms that they were presenting this time. So they didn't, not all of them, but the majority of them had a different set of symptoms. So that means that just by cleansing, that means that most people right now that are going into their doctor's office, they're getting treated for the symptoms that are on the outer layer. But what's really the root cause of what they're dealing with is 2 or 3 layers in, or the symptoms that because what we noticed was we peeled back that first layer and then that was gone.
Well, this is fascinating because you're stating something that is profound, in that your diagnosis and treatment in a traditional medical environment would be based on, in large part, on symptom presentation. There might be some other analytics that they do or diagnostics that might be done, but they're basically looking at the history, looking at the symptoms. It's very algorithmic. You know, if you got this, and this, oh, we're going to treat you this way. But as you're saying, that's kind of a veneer or an outer layer, and there are maybe more deeper and probably more critical health issues that are not expressing. That means that that's why that one study that was done, or actually multiple studies, but that they say about 50% or more of initial medical diagnoses are wrong.
Yes.
Yet you're being treated for the wrong diagnosis, and typically treated with something that's dangerous or toxic.
Yeah, and that's just what natural physicians that have been using fasting, which is another form of rapid cleansing that goes back thousands of years, or abstinence from food, or just doing herbs, or soaking in mineral baths, different types of detoxification and different types of cleansing. Traditional Chinese medicine associates all emotional mental illnesses with a congested and toxic liver. So yes, it wasn't anything that we did that we didn't really know, but the shocking part of it is it just proved the fact that if you clean and repair the gut, if you cleanse the liver and free that up so it can actually work fairly decently, get rid of all the harmful organisms and chemicals and toxic metals, that then is when you should really, or the practitioner, whether natural or medical, that's when you should work with the individual and see how you can start balancing all those things out, because you're getting to a deeper cause of what's really happening with the individual.
And what's interesting is that, and again, the traditional medical environment, they're going down this path based on symptomatology and history, and then what's prescribed is also toxic. So
yeah,
you have certain points of view about this that I think are very important. So now, let's say I'm a consumer. I've got a desire to want to get healthy, live healthy, and also be able to lead my family in that direction. And now I show up to this natural products industry to try to figure out what do I need to do to get there, and I'm overwhelmed. How do I start to sort through what's important, what's the right kind of a supplement to take versus something that might be less desirable, et cetera?
Well, we've come a long way in the last 20 years. But the way I look at it is always looking at the root cause. I mean, if you just think for a second, I want to put healthy food in my mouth, and plant-based food is always great, and avoiding all of the chemicals and toxins out there that you would normally avoid would be the step number one.
How do you avoid them instantly? So what are you looking for?
Well, I mean, not necessarily in supplements, but I mean, you look at your house, number one, and you look at your air quality in your house, you look at where you sleep, you avoid all the VOCs, you avoid all the chemicals.
What's a VOC?
A volatile organic compound, like a memory foam mattress you might be sleeping on, which is sprayed with fire retardants and volatile organic compounds. You have an air freshener in over there, which is releasing phthalates into the air. You have a smart meter on the side of your house, which is bombarding you with electromagnetic radiation. And the reason I'm saying all these things is because it will affect the supplements that you take, and it will affect how those supplements work on you. So your environment, the cleaner your environment is, going through your kitchen and looking and getting rid of all the genetically modified foods, using organic foods, purchasing organic foods, drinking water more instead of all of the other substances. I believe in the 90-10 rule is kind of the way I live, or the 80-20 rule for some people. But you realize right now the people that we've studied, and we've studied millions and millions of people over the last 20 years, most people today are still living by the 20-80 rule, which means they only do 20% of the time healthy stuff and 80% of the time bad stuff. So 20% of their life they exercise, 20% of the time and some are even a lot lower than that, 10%, like 5%. They're not doing personal development. They're not getting to know themselves. They're not doing spiritual development. They're not feeding their soul. They're not exercising. They're not living a clean, healthy life. Now, you can go to extremes too, which I don't recommend because, that theory of you always want what you can't have kind of a thing. So everything in moderation is okay, as long as you take the time and effort to cleanse yourself on a regular basis. So that's the start on, look at your environment, look at what you're putting into your body, look at what you're exposing your body to, stop lathering sunscreen and personal care goods that are all chemicals on top of your skin, and just start going more natural and more natural and more natural.
Great.
But when you're looking at what supplements you should take, just go back in time and think about how those supplements are made. What I like to think of is I go back all the way to the soil, which is the first step. And companies today, if you ask them, they'll be happy to share that information with you. So I ask, where is it grown? Because the seed has to go in the soil, right? So the soil it surrounds it, it nurtures it, it keeps it warm, it provides the seed with the energy it needs to grow. So soil is always one of the most important things, no matter what, because that's where that plant is going to get all the nutrients that you're ultimately going to put inside of you.
So if we got the seed, now we know it's important. The soil is important. What's the next step in the chain?
So the love that the plant gets when it's growing. And these are all easy. I mean, really, it's common sense. What seed would you choose if that was ultimately going to be made into a supplement? Would you choose a really good, healthy seed? Or would you choose a pesticide-ridden, toxic seed? And this is a conversation I've been having with the National Organic Program and the certifiers is, why are you allowing farmers to water their soil with tap water and still be certified organic? It makes no sense, because you have prescription drug residue in tap water, you have chemicals, you have toxins, you have fluoride, yet how can you say that soil is organic if you're watering it with tap water?
That's a good point.
And when you grow the plant, in a perfect situation, it would be more sustainable permaculture, where you have another plant around it that actually works good and provides nutrients for that plant, or it's called a companion plant. Okay, but a lot of large-scale farming operations will just grow the one plant. It's easier to harvest, so they don't have to weed all the time. But
which is not the way these things exist in nature.
Which is not the way they exist in nature.
Right.
There's very few people that are doing that, unless you have an organic farm like we do, where everything grows wild with the companion plants, and then you just go pick the herbs that you want. wherever you pick them. But this is going to the extreme on how you would choose like the perfect supplement. And then the next stage is actually how is that plant harvested when it's ready? That makes a huge difference. You know, I recommend using the astrological, the biodynamic methods and picking the plant, whether it's close to a moon cycle, whether it's on the full moon, or using the moon cycles, because you can take a plant, let's just say holy basil or something like that, and you can take the leaves and you can test the constituents and you can test the activity of the essential oils at a certain time this week, and then the moon cycle is next week, and you can take a leaf and test it then, and then the week after that, take a leaf and test it then, and you're going to have different constituent levels. So in a perfect world, the farmers and the pickers should meet, and they should, you know, be blessing every single day. They should be blessing the plants, blessing the herbs, meditating.
What's
over
interesting
them.
about this is that at a point, like some people might be looking at this saying, this sounds like crazy talk. But you're reminding me back in undergrad, in my biology class, I had to write a paper, and the paper was predicated on the book called The Secret Life of Plants.
Yes.
And so what you're saying, as much as it sounds like maybe hippie, fantasy, kind of stuff about love and prayer and, how that might affect a plant or not. People say that sounds crazy. There's been controlled research done on exactly what you're talking about, and this is what the foundation of this book was. The secret life of plants is the fact that they are responsive to these environmental cues, and they can sense these things. So it's real.
They are alive.
Yeah.
I mean, they're alive, and they're working for you. They're serving you. Wouldn't you want, if you're taking supplements, wouldn't you want to take what came from a happy plant and a very happy soil and a very happy environment? I mean, ultimately that's what I want to take when I take a supplement. I want to know that the plant was treated properly. I want to know that there was, it wasn't sprayed and it wasn't, harmed in any way. So you can, and then comes the harvesting process of when you harvest the plants or the herbs. And, if you harvest with metal, or if you harvest, that's, a lot of the large scale will have attachments on their tractor. And then they cut the plant. And, if you want to go even further and you want to do it hand, then you have ceramic scissors. So because every time metal touches when you cut a plant, it's just like cutting your skin a little bit. It's an inflammation process that the plant goes through, and it's harm for the plant. But it doesn't really take a lot of the nutrients and more of the energetic value, because if you look at anything healing, it really all comes down to energy anyway. I mean, the sound that creates light and what's the energetic value of those herbs or that supplement or those ingredients that you're taking, or even the food that you're eating for that matter. The difference between live food versus dead food, or microwave food or non-microwave food, which is another study they did with putting water in the microwave and microwaving it, and then using that water to grow this plant versus regular, pure, healthy water for another plant. And they found that the plant with the microwave water just was diseased and didn't really grow that well. So the harvesting of the herbs is, then it goes into, when the herbs are nice and fresh and green, then it goes to the drying method. Some of them are dried in big bins at 150 degrees.
Does that denature it?
It denatures it, because you're going to, any type of a heat process is going to release the essential oils into the air. It's going to burn the outside of the leaves sometimes. It's going to, I've literally watched it happen where everything's a bright green, and then you can, with the windows and the big dryers, you can see it turning, if you heat it too fast, you can start seeing the outsides of the leaves start to become brown really fast, and the stems start to become brown really fast, and it just, it just burns.
The interesting thing here is that technically, from let's call it a labeling perspective and FTC compliance perspective, the substance that they say is in there, but how it's processed all along this chain that you're describing will impact really how effective it is. So they wouldn't be lying on the label if they were using shoddy practices necessarily, but as far as its usefulness in your body, it's completely different.
Well, that's the synergy, the synergistic effect, because what they usually state on the label is one, two, or three of the most active components of the plant, like curcuminoid level for turmeric. What they're not listing is the 50 to 100 different oleoresins, essential oil complexes, vitamins, minerals, amino acids.
And these are all affected by it.
All of those are there in nature for a reason, to have a synergistic effect on how effective that plant's going to work or how effective that herb's going to work once you take it. So what happens is during the drying process, you might lose, let's say on average, 20 to 30% of the other constituents that oxidize out in heat, because heat damages things. Excessive heat damages things. Plants have little tiny bloodstreams in them with all these nutrients, just like us, like water and chlorophyll and all these different things coming around in them. So the key is to try to just get the water out, but preserve all of the other healing components of the plant. So a perfect drying method would be something under 105 degrees, but it would just take a lot longer than what the standard drying processes are. So they can dry 100 kilograms of fresh herb probably in 3 to 4 hours at high heat, where it might take 3 to 4 days at a lower heat. So after the drying process, before they go to the milling process, they go to the destemmers and everything, where these just machines that will just take the leaves or separate the leaves from the stem or whatever you want to separate from the plant. You can sell, whether the medicinal part of the plant is the root, the bark, the stem, the leaf, or whatever. Those are going to be those specially designed machines that just separate all that stuff out. Well then, no matter what, if you have the stem, the root, the bark, the leaf, the flower, then it has to go to the powdering process, unless it's going to be used in a tea, or it's called cut and sifted. And cut and sifted is really the best thing to use if you're going to be doing some sort of an herbal liquid extract and not encapsulation, because you're still going to preserve more of the active component in a cut and sifted than you would in a powdered. So then it goes to the milling process. For most encapsulations, most supplements have to use a fine powder. And in the milling process, most companies use a hammer mill. And a hammer mill actually can get to the point, if you're milling hundreds of kilos, that hammer mill can almost get red hot. And so that, if you can imagine this herb, the trauma that this herb is going through, where it just got burned in this chamber of heat, and then all of a sudden it goes to this hammer mill, and then it just gets milled and just gets beaten down into a powder. And then you have the powder that is ready to be shipped off to any type of a company that wants to put the powder in its product. However, in China and other countries, they sometimes adulterate the powder, and they put other filler agents in it, or excipients in it, or different types of toxic compounds in there to increase the weight of it. Then it goes to your facility, and then it's how that plant is actually handled in your facility as well, and if it's mixed with anything or if it's not mixed with anything. So the milling process can be a damaging process to the herbs. And so now what we're looking at and what we're trying to improve every step, from seed to supplement, or actually from soil to supplement, is looking at revolutionizing all of those steps. Those steps are the same steps that have been used for the last, hundred thousands of years. No one's Rudolf Steiner for biodynamic has done a lot of work with soil, but there's so much more, like even going above biodynamic farming and going to quantum farming now, which we are looking at. A group of people are looking at, what else can we do to the soil? Can we put soil-based microorganisms into the soil? How can we cleanse the soil? How can we, put worm casings in the soil? How can we create, really good soils for these plants, the pH levels of the soil? How can we improve the quality of the seeds? We're using paramagnetics now to improve the quality of the seeds. We can use geometric and magnetic sound frequencies to rearrange DNA in seeds, again, that have been damaged before we plant them. How can we increase yield of these plants? How can we take better care of them? How can we play music for them in the field? How can we harvest them better? How can we dry them better? Actually, freeze drying would be the ultimate. That would be take the fresh plant and have big freeze dryers and just put them directly in and freeze dry them. That would be the ultimate way to dry and preserve a plant, which hopefully we're getting into that, moving into that. All of this type of technology costs a lot of money, though, a lot of money. For example, we went to a farm and had one of our farmers that works exclusively for us implement the majority of these procedures. Our milk thistle costs $26 a pound utilizing these methods. Certified organic, mostly biodynamic grown, quantum grown milk thistle for $26 a pound. Milk thistle, certified organic milk thistle, you could get readily available for $3, $4 a pound.
Wow.
So why am I paying $26 a pound for milk thistle when everybody else out there is paying $3 and it's still certified organic and has the seal? How do you know? How are you going to know that if I have a pound of milk thistle here with a certified organic seal on it and a pound of milk thistle over here with a certified organic seal on it, why would I be paying $26 when I can get the same thing over here for $3? Well, the reason why is because this has 90% of the constituents in it. This has maybe 10% to 12% of the healing constituents in it.
So this is the fascinating thing. People, the consumer, and I'm a consumer. I mean, I take a lot of supplements every day. The consumer wants the easier shortcut. Hey, this is non-GMO, this is organic. Okay, I'm checking the boxes of what I want in a supplement, and then I'm shopping it and trying to find what I think is the best value for the thing I'm looking for. But what you're communicating to me in a quite profound way is that there's a lot more below the surface here. And you are obviously extraordinarily passionate about this.
Like I said, it's common sense if you just think about it. Like, what kind of soil was this grown in? What kind of seed was used? How was it harvested? How was it dried? How was it processed? How is it, it's basically the life of your supplement. It doesn't matter if it's a multivitamin, multi-herbal, anything. Figure out, and companies are starting to become more transparent with that, figure out the life of it and how, and the processing and the testing that it's gone through before you put it in your mouth. When you look at a supplement, a lot of times you see more ingredients in the other ingredients panel than you do actually in the supplement panel. It's like, trust is a big, big issue, and more people are getting into being able to trust the company and trust the individual because it is getting saturated out there with supplements. People are confused. People are having a hard time choosing the best supplement to take. You can go on Amazon and type in turmeric supplement, and there's going to be 1,000 of them that come up in there.
Right.
I mean, I'm at the point now where I just go high to low because I have to search through 8 pages of like $2.99 turmeric supplements, which I know are not going to work for me because it's impossible with that theory. Let's say, people say, well, why are your supplements so expensive? I can get this milk thistle over here for $2.99 and your milk thistle is $19.99. Well, because we incorporate all these processes in all these different care for the plant and everything. And that's another reason why it's good to look at the company that you're buying from. So if you're buying or you're looking for a supplement, number one, start with the company. Look at the company. How long have they been in business? Who's running the company? What's the company's goals for the next 5 years? They have a lot of private equity. They're going to have an exit strategy, or they're going to get maybe owned by a pharmaceutical company. What's the strategy of the company? What's the mission of the company? Do they own their own farms? Do they work with with organic farmers and contract farms? What is their processing technique? What kind of seeds they're using? What kind of soil do their farmers use? A good company will actually have a document or be able to talk to you about those things and just asking more questions and more questions. I mean, before you even get to the company, though, it's very easy if you look at a label, a supplement label, and the first thing you want to look for is organic. I mean, a lot of good supplements though are not certified organic, but you want to look at the ingredients. You want to make sure that there's no synthetic vitamins in there. One big teller that I always look for if I pick up a supplement and it has it has cobalamin in there for B12, cyanocobalamin. I just know that that's a cheap supplement right off the bat that I'm not even going to worry about. If it has magnesium stearate in it, if it has titanium dioxide in it, if it has silicon dioxide in it, any ide or ate, stearate or chloride or any of those, any chemical that you don't know that doesn't come from the earth, if it's in there, just don't even worry about getting it. But it should be GMO free. It should be dairy-free in most cases, and that's not to say dairy is bad, but the dairy that they use comes from USDA slaughterhouses and is contaminated usually with the cows ate genetically modified corn and everything else. It should be soy-free because all the soy is genetically modified, and if it's not, it's still going to be an endocrine-disrupting chemical. And look at reviews. I mean, we're living in the day and age right now is, does this product work? What are other people saying about it? I mean, you can learn a lot about that. If the product has really, really good reviews, then most likely it is going to be a good product.
If I'm a consumer, as most consumers are, in the sense that I have a budget, here's the defined budget of what I can allocate toward my supplementation for myself and or my family, am I better off limiting the range of supplements and buying quality with this budget, or am I better off going wide?
I mean, it's the difference between a broken down tricycle and a Mercedes-Benz. I mean, you're always better off buying quality, and your body's always better off with quality.
Sure.
But this is the thing. I mean, people are on budgets now. People are in debt. It's very hard for people to make the changes. So what I say to people like that is, I say, supplements are great. I believe in supplements. I manufacture supplements. But if you're on a limited budget, let's focus on healing your gut first. Now that also requires you to buy supplements, but you're not buying supplements like vitamins and minerals and herbs. You're focusing on the supplements you need to actually heal the toxic load where it is, so you can absorb and utilize and metabolize your nutrients better. On a limited budget, always start in the gut. Buy 2 supplements, a good probiotic supplement, and buy a good intestinal cleanser, an oxygen-based intestinal cleanser. It is hard for people with a budget to choose the right supplement, but my recommendation is look at what you're dealing with and look at how you can actually heal the body instead of wasting your money if you take a supplement. People waste so much money on supplements. Most supplements are still bought at drugstores, the big superstores, all that. Rule of thumb, never get your supplements from a drugstore, grocery store, anywhere like that. I mean, that's just setting yourself up. You made a comment about prescription medications. Well, supplements can be just as bad. Just magnesium stearate alone coats the bowel and reduces the absorption of your vitamins and your minerals and your herbs.
And that's used in a lot of supplements, magnesium stearate. I mean,
Yes.
I've seen it as an ingredient. And so it's interesting that you're kind of counterproductive saying, hey, I'm buying this, but it's combined with something toxic. So I'm like, well, you use the term wasting my money.
Yes.
And a lot of people are looking for convenience. So, hey, well, I'm at the grocery store, I'll pick up my X. And I've seen, we've had conversations in the series, and some people are saying, hey, some of that stuff, it's got reason, maybe it's not as good as a high quality premium supplement, but it might have some beneficial effect. What you're presenting is saying, hey, that actually might be counterproductive and a waste of money.
I am saying it's counterproductive. It could be counterproductive, and it could be a waste of money because you're still not addressing the root cause. A lot of people buy supplements because their friends are taking supplements, or they read an article online that says, I have fatigue and B12 might boost my energy levels. So the marketing behind supplements is convincing people to go buy the supplements, but it's not educating people as to why they need the supplements in the first place. It's not educating people as to, well, really your fatigue is caused by the toxic buildup in your body. And you can go get the B12 and it'll probably help you a little bit. I mean, you might not absorb all of it, but you might get a little bit of a boost in energy. But you're just putting a Band-Aid over it. You're still not addressing the root cause of the situation. Like eating healthy, you can get a lot of your vitamins and nutrients just by juicing. You can save a lot of money that way. Instead of going out and if you have a budget of $100 a month on supplements, you could juice once a week or a couple times a week and get a lot of those minerals and vitamins in that. You can take a very inexpensive fulvic humic acid, a little bit of fulvic humic acid. You can do one of the things that we're doing to energize all of our products, the raw herbal extracts, is we're using a bamboo salt that takes 3 years to develop, which provides a really good high profile of all the vitamins and all the minerals. It doesn't really have to be that expensive, but ultimately you want to be able to change your lifestyle a little bit and be able to eat more organic foods and be able to cleanse your body on a regular basis and then supplement with the supplements that you need.
Let me ask you this. You're family-owned, your company. I mean, it's private. If you were to take outside investment money, and I think in other conversations you told me it's been offered, and I know you've turned it down, but if you were to take outside money from, that's investment capital that's, geared toward, hey, we want to grow a business, we want to be able to sell a business eventually, make money on our money, et cetera. Do you think you'd be able to do the stuff you're doing? I mean, is that why you stay kind of private and family owned, so that you can have the discretion to do this type of stuff?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can tell you a story recently. We get people that want to buy our company all the time, that want to put money into the company, and we are launching this raw herbal extract technology. And when you do an extraction of herbs, by the way, and you can do, I say raw herbal extract technology, but we can use minerals and vitamins from herbs as well and do different types of extractions on that. We're trying to keep the whole process as a cold process, or at least under 105 degrees. And we also use a certified organic glycerin from mustard seed, which is a very exclusive type of glycerin, and we use triple distilled water in our extracts. Triple distilled water was the old school way to do alchemy and to be able to extract, because it's a lighter water and it holds frequencies better. But then you come to the scenario which most other manufacturers out there are using all metal vessels, okay? So let's say you take the plant, now you've got your plant material, and now you're ready to extract all the components from it to make an extract that you can take that's very alive, that's potent. Well, they put all that in big metal containers, and metal strips away some of the good frequencies from the plant, So it's like the plant's not touching metal in nature. So you want to try to limit the amount of contact that the plant has with metal. We don't. We have custom-made borosilicate glass vessels. So the plant, while it's in its maceration phase and while it's in its extraction phase, it's not touching any metal. And that's when we create almost like a glycerospheric technology. And all the other companies out there, well, I shouldn't say all, a lot of them use alcohol for extraction. Alcohol's been used for ages, but alcohol is actually damaging to the plant. Alcohol actually is denaturing to the plant. Alcohol is an endocrine disrupting chemical. It's not good for you to take, actually, herbal extracts in an alcohol base. But after you have all that plant material in there for a long period of time, how are you going to filter that all out to where you just end up with the standard extract? If we would have private equity coming in that was looking at the numbers, a lot of times what you want to do with risk and what you want to do with innovation and what you want to do with R&D and is looked at as, how long is this going to take to be profitable? How is this a competitive advantage? And how are we going to profit from that? And it might be hard to buy or innovate a $2 million machine or a process or something like that. But we actually had to go and find a way that we could get all of the plant material out and do it in a cold process. So we actually had to work with a company in Germany, Heinkel Centrifuge, and we have the only high-end centrifuge in the United States right now that the extracts get poured into, and it spins at really high, like up to 9 Gs in RPMs in a cold environment, and then all of the cake material, all the plant material then is extracted, and we get the pure liquid coming out the other end. So something like that, like an investment like that, where nobody's figured out how to do that or no one's actually used that, we had to literally invent the whole process with the experts in Germany, ship it over on a ship, get it into our facility. It's huge. And that's how we're able to extract. Other companies might heat it up a lot because the glycerin or whatever they're trying to do, anything's easier usually when it's heated, and then they can remove all that, or it just comes out through filtration systems. So then, and then after you have the final extract of an herb, then you can even, looking at each step again, then you can say, okay, well, how can we do this better than anyone else? Then how can we do this better than anybody else? And then how can we do this better than anybody else? And then instead of just stopping, like most people do, and just bottle it right then, we said, how can we make this even more active? How can we even activate this even more? And according to Paracelsus, in the 1500s, when he was working at bringing plants back to life through the spagyric process, means to separate all the plant components and then bring them back in together to bring them back to life, what he would do with that plant material, the excess plant material, instead of throw it away, he would burn it at high temperatures until it was an ash, until it was a white ash. And then he had a specific technique to purify the ashes multiple times to where he would just get the basic plant salts that were still lodged in the material. It's like, so you're incorporating the air, the fire, the water, and the earth aspect into the plant. And so then he would put those plant salts back into the formula and it would energize it. So we developed an energized trace mineral blend using a 9X insan bamboo salt in the combination with the plant salts. And that brings an energetic value tremendously back into the plant. And if you do that, if anyone knows how to do alchemy and they do the plant salts, you can put some of the salts on a plate and leave it. And weeks later, months later, the salts will actually start growing across the plant. Can I explain what's a universal life force energy that just causes this thing to grow?
Yeah.
But if you have an extract, it's almost like a fine wine like that because it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger with age. And we did that and tested our turmeric product with that process, and we took 6 or 7 of the top turmeric products, the liquid, comparable products on the market, and we had it tested by Dr. Rain, who is one of probably the leading scientists right now on measuring quantum energy fields. And ours was 15 to 30,000 times more energetically potent than any other product on the market. So I mean, that's kind of where the herbal supplementation, or at least the liquid extract process is going. But for standard supplementation, I think we've come a long way. If someone's taking capsules, and they even have liquid capsules now, and now they're having the big gummies everywhere, which the kids love. So I think we're making progress, but just make sure that you check everything out. You make sure where the ingredients come from. You check out the history of the company, who's leading the company, and make sure that it doesn't contain any toxic byproducts in the supplements. What we would like to do is we would like to see more testing done on pesticides, insecticides. Request a C of A from the company. Now, standard across the industry, they just check for heavy metals basically, and they check for microbes. What we would like to see is an expanded test done for a few more heavy metals. Most still don't test for aluminum. And we would like to see more expanded testing done on contamination. So the reason I mention all that is because if we were to take private equity, or if we were to get bought with a majority share in the company, I feel like we wouldn't be able to do the things that we're able to do today, because we work for the consumer. We want to provide the best possible supplements for the end consumer, because our mission is to help change people's lives for the better, help create positive change in people's lives.
So this has been completely unique and fascinating as far as what you presented, so thanks for that. I know also when we were talking prior to the interview, you started to tell me about your plant, where you do all this manufacturing, and that was like overwhelmingly stimulating as far as how you're doing things there. You allude to some of it, but we're out of time. So maybe I can get an invitation. We can go down there and we can go check that out and have a firsthand experience with that.
Absolutely. You're definitely invited. We want you to see the plant. We want to be transparent, and we will actually be posting videos and pictures of the plant and the steps of our raw herbal extract technology online for everybody to view.
Thanks so much for taking this time and sharing all this.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Couldn't you just feel Dr. Ed Group's passion for what he does and how authentic and sincere he is? Really happy to share this very special human being with you. There are some people who just roll up their sleeves and dive into the work that they're doing, and one of those types of people is Jane Barlow Christensen. Herbal remedies are an important part of the arsenal that should be available to us to gain better health and well-being. And Jane Barlow Christensen is someone who grew up in this and has a phenomenal amount of experience and still has her hands directly in it. Really impressive person with a great amount of knowledge. Enjoy this interview. Jane, great to be with you.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you too.
So tell me about this weird place I'm in right now.
Okay, so this is my happy place because we do this once a year.
Your happy place.
This is my happy place. This reminds me of my childhood because my dad, a botanist, and this was what he used to do. And this smell in particular is my happy place because this is deep memories of when I was growing up and my dad identifying plants. But we are right now in the middle of our harvest for this plant, Lomatium. And we only do it once a year, but this is where we are. We're standing in the middle of drying and curing Lomatium plants.
And this is kind of like a, how can I put it, a handcrafted thing. It's like there's no
Yeah.
automated, you didn't have any machines in the field that dug this stuff up, right?
No, in fact, you don't want to do that because it'll destroy the environment. These only grow in the wild. You can't cultivate these plants. So we actually identify the ones that you can pull out, and we lovingly take them out of the ground, and they're babied from the moment they come out of the ground to the moment they're chopped up. And yeah, you can't dig up a hillside. My son, who's almost 38, said, can we just get a bulldozer and bulldoze this hill because it's so labor intensive? I'm like, no, no way, no way.
And it's all, wild grown. In other words, this is just
Yeah.
how it naturally grows in the environment, and then you
Yeah.
have to just go find it and kind of cultivate it.
Yeah,
right?
well, you can't cultivate
Well,
it.
I shouldn't say
Yeah.
cultivate it, but dig it up and
So it's called wildcrafting. So when you go collect plants where they grow in their own environment, it's called wildcrafting. So either organic or wildcrafted probably are the best herbs to look for.
Got it.
Yes, this is wildcrafted.
And this is this building we're in is on your property where you live.
Yeah.
So this is really still a family business.
Yeah.
Was it started by your father?
Yeah.
So basically you grew up. He was what was his business exactly?
So my dad's PhD was in medicinal botany. So he was a botanist, and when we were growing up, he used to he was always tinkering around with stuff we'd have stuff growing in jars and stuff curing in places. And when we would drive somewhere, if he would see a plant on the side of the road that he wanted to identify and teach us about, he would literally pull over, we'd all pile out, and there's 14 of us. So
14?
I'm second oldest of 14.
Oh my goodness.
So we would literally all pile out of the car off of each other because we didn't all have seatbelts.
One car?
Yes, always one car, and
Okay.
it was never a van.
Wow.
So we would get out, and he would show us and identify plants all the time.
Wow.
Like, what's the Latin name? What's the common name? What part of the plant can you use? What time of the day do you collect it? And so this is normal to me.
So you followed in the footsteps.
Yeah. So my dad passed away when he was 62, and the business kind of died with him. And I never really thought that I would be the one because there's so many of us, and I have 5 brothers, and you always think it's the boys who are going
Right.
to take over the family business. But no, it was I just had this huge calling that it had to be me, and a lot of intuition about doing this work that was my dad's work and carrying it on.
So right now, I guess is this annual that you harvest the Lomatium, that you
Yeah.
go out and wildcraft it, I guess, and bring it in?
Yeah.
So you obviously have, I think, other herbals and so other things that you do, but is this sort of what you're known for?
It is what I'm known for, and it's interesting because the more I get known for it, the more I kind of worry about it because there's not enough for everybody who wants it.
Right.
But we do a lot of other really cool formulations that were my dad's. Over the years, I've developed my own tinctures and supplements, and that's been like amazing because to grow up with a dad like that, have this huge thing be my passion, and start learning about formulating it's so fun. So fun.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
What's special about this?
Well, I think the number one thing that's special about this is the fact that everything is done with love. Like the moment we pull it out of the ground, it's 2 of my brothers and my son who do most of the harvesting. And they literally like love these roots when they come out. Like they show each other on the hill and they look, this one, I think this one's this old. And because my dad taught us how to identify how old the plants are by how some of the stalks on the top of the root. And at the beginning of the process, these plants are literally loved. So I think that's the best thing I love about this. And then the fact that it actually helps people heal.
So what are the healing properties of Lomatium?
So antimicrobial. So viruses, fungus, yeast, some types of bad bacteria. And it goes after hardcore stuff. You know, like I've seen people have success with herpes and HPV and shingles and the things that hit us as humans that are viral. And I think the biggest property in it is viral.
So I see that it's the roots, they look like they're kind of chopped up and spread out. So what's the process?
Yeah, so when we dig the roots out, they're really these big fibrous roots, and one of the common names is black carrot. So we have to have it chopped up within 24 hours after we pull it out of the ground. So these plants right here, this has been out for about 3 weeks, and they're mostly dried. So they dry. Yeah, you can totally pick them up. So they will dry down to a third. So when that was
3 times its size.
3 times its size.
Wow.
And what happens is part of the process that makes the plant have its properties and its power is the oxidation. So you can take fresh Lomatium and cure it in alcohol, and it doesn't work the same.
So you have to let it kind of...
You have to let it oxidize.
Consolidates and oxidizes, and then what do you do with it after that?
So then what we do is we hopefully have enough for the year, because we only can collect this in the fall, and we bag it up and we take it to the manufacturer, and then he makes it into tinctures or capsules or different things for us, and that's it.
It seems like you spread it. I think you mentioned earlier you can't have it touch.
Yeah, so when we chop these up, so if you were to chop these 2 pieces up and you were to lay them right next to each other like this, and they were wet, if you weren't careful, they would mold. Both of these pieces would mold. So right now they wouldn't because they've been drying for 3 weeks.
Right.
But literally, when we do all of these racks and we take this piece and we lay it, it's totally wet and heavy. And sometimes you can see the oils oozing out of it. We set it so it won't touch any other piece. And so literally every one of these pieces has been by hand set next to the rest, and they don't touch each other. Wow. So it's kind of labor intensive.
Yeah, for sure. And then the way they consume it is that, so these been drying, you said this is like 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
And then it gets brought to a place for processing. So they grind it, or what do they do?
Yeah, they grind it up. We actually have a hammer mill. It's over there. So we grind it up because it's almost like a piece of wood. By the time it's really, really tough. So we mill it, and then we take it to the manufacturer, and they test it. So it goes through really comprehensive lab testing to make sure that it really is what we say it is, and that the microbe, like, you don't want it to have mold or yeast or bad bacteria on it. Anything that
you asked me not to sneeze in here also,
Yeah, I did. I know. You're like, oh, I'm going to sneeze. So, I mean, if you were to put this in a tincture, you could totally sneeze on this, and it's going to kill anything.
Right.
So
then you grind it up, and then it gets put into, I guess, capsules, or you put it into like grain alcohol, like you dissolve it?
Yeah, so we used to use grain alcohol, but we don't anymore because there were so many people who didn't like the gluten factor but even in alcohol, so alcohol has no gluten in it, but people didn't even like the energy of grain, so we use cane alcohol now. It's the same properties, but it's 190 proof.
Wow. Super
powerful. And then we extract all the properties, at least the manufacturer does. We used to do it all by hand, but we don't anymore. And then they filter it and they bottle it, and what's left is the power of the plant inside the tincture.
So do you normally use Lomatium just kind of in reactions, like say when you start to not feel well, that's the time to take it, so you just have it around in a medicine cabinet, so to speak, or is it something that you would just do kind of on a routine basis also?
Well, it depends on what you're using it for. So the way I use it is I use it during cold and flu season for prevention, because your body doesn't appear to build an immunity to it.
Right.
So I take it every day during cold and flu season, or if I ever get on an airplane. So when I travel, especially if I travel overseas, like think about, you're up in an airplane, somebody coughs, everybody's exposed. So this is something I never travel without, because it has the ability to keep you well while you're traveling as a prevention. Now, I've only ever had one UTI in my life, and this like cleared it up within 1 day.
Wow. Wow.
So it can go after an acute infection or a chronic infection, or you can use it for prevention. But yeah, it's awesome.
This smells sort of intense in here. I wish we could do the smellorama for the audience. Yeah, but yeah, so
It
it's
does.
pretty intense smell. Is there any bodily reactions that might happen when you take this stuff?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because yes, this is something that actually can scare a lot of people away from using this plant. So about 10% of the population, when they take this plant for the first time, it doesn't matter if it's in tincture form or in capsule form, will get a one-time full body detox rash. And it looks like measles, and it progresses. And it, like, here's a good example. It's so classic. Say someone has like Hashimoto's, where there's an underlying Epstein-Barr virus, right? The rash will start here where their thyroid is, and then it will spread.
Right.
If someone has chronic UTIs, it'll start back here on their kidneys.
Wow.
And then it will spread. Someone has chronic chest infections or sinus infections. But the rash is super classic. It's not dangerous or contagious. It shows up at about a week. So if you were to take this and for the first time, you've never tried it, and you get a rash like on day 5 or day 7.
Are you saying that you're taking it for 5 to 7 days, or it's day 5 after you've taken it once?
Yes. So the rash usually shows up between days 5 and 7. So you take it on day 1, you take it on day 2, you take it on day 3. If you're gonna get the detox rash, it doesn't show up until it's been about a week.
I see.
So it's not, if like a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm having this horrible allergic reaction. But if you were having an allergic reaction, it would show up on the first day.
That's right.
So this is what I believe is happening with this rash is that when your body finally has a tool to eradicate a viral load, I really believe that's what's happening, because it's mostly people who've been struggling with chronic viral issues that get the rash. But your body finally has a tool to go, I'm going to get rid of this.
Right.
Your liver simply can't take how fast the detox happens. So your skin, as your largest organ, is just helping you out.
Wow.
So the skin is just going, okay. And it's classic. Like, I have a file on my computer of thousands of pictures of people's rashes. And I've talked most of them off the ledge. And it's really the most intense thing I do. It keeps me super humble, because people get scared. They don't realize that sometimes you have to get worse to get better,
Right.
when natural healing is what occurs.
How
So
long does
it's
the
interesting.
rash last typically?
It can last anywhere from 3 days to 14 days.
Oh,
Depends
wow.
on the
Okay.
person. Yeah.
Is it itchy? And
Oh, it's horribly itchy.
oh wow.
Horribly
Right.
itchy.
Kind of like a niacin flush then, like where you can get that.
Yeah, but it lasts a little longer than a
Yeah,
niacin
I
flush.
imagine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really kind of incredible. And for some people, it's very emotional. Like, besides the physical, the itching, the swelling, sometimes people get a fever, but it can be a really emotional detox as well. It's
Yeah.
kind of fascinating.
I mean, yeah. By the sounds of what you're saying, and how thousands of pictures of rashes and thousands
Yeah.
of people talking off ledges.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like it could be a little discouraging for me now to say, "Whoa, I should do this."
Yeah.
Is the rash a blessing, or is the rash something really like to try to I should want to avoid maybe, or I don't want that?
I would say most people are so tired of suffering from chronic things that are keeping them stuck, that they're willing to try it. But
Yeah.
it does deter people. And that's why, for the most part, like, my dad only sold to practitioners. He never sold in a retail market.
Are there a lot of practitioners today? Like when you're selling now, are you selling to practitioners?
Yeah, yeah.
And basically, so they're stocking it in their offices.
Yeah.
As a solution for their patients who are struggling with some of these chronic illnesses.
Yeah, well, and then they can front load them. They can say, look, with this plant, this is what it's going to do for you, but here's the potential for a rash. So they're able to educate, because to me, if you're educated about the potential for it, if it shows up, you're not going to be surprised.
Right.
So you're never going to see this on a shelf of a health food store. There are some companies that make an isolate of this plant, which basically means they're isolating out the oil faction that causes the rash. But that's partly where it gives its power. Like, if you're taking out part of the power, but you don't have to worry about a rash.
Well, philosophically, on the isolate side, I guess there's what I'm seeing just came out of nature, right? I mean, this is the whole thing together, and you're
Yeah.
not separating anything. It's,
Right.
So, and I have to imagine there's sort of synergies or cofactors, that are a part of this that give it its full effect.
I agree.
To be utilized. Is that kind of the philosophy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and with that, it seems that this is sort of a more powerful type of an herb or a nutrient. You compared to the other things that you craft, is this like one of the most powerful things as far as its impact?
I would say so. Like, I've had people ask me, what's your favorite herb? Or if you could only pick one herb, what would it be? I would say this one.
Yeah.
Because if you go through life and you think about the things that come at us as humans, simply because we're biology, look at the flu epidemic of 1918. This plant was used by the 2 tribes of Native Americans, and not one person from both those tribes died because of this plant. So you think about the things that happen as humans that can cause us death. It's a virus even. I'm glad I don't have to pick. I have a whole apothecary full of herbs and tinctures, and like some that sit by my computer and some that are in my kitchen and some wherever.
You're starting to sound like my wife.
Right? I know. It's true. I have bottles of stuff everywhere.
Right.
But if I could only pick one, it would be this one.
And the fact that practitioners also use this, who are providers, is there any other things that you create that they use also routinely, or is this kind of like the mainstay that you distribute to practitioners?
Well, this is a mainstay, but we have things like anti-candida formula. We have a parasite cleanse that doesn't have any lomatium in it. Just a lot of different things you can use for lung issues and parasites and candida. There's a lot of different things that come at us as humans besides viruses.
Yeah, but the interesting thing, and it's to hear you talk about maybe the benefits based on organ systems. So you have to, I guess, be careful about though especially when you're labeling and you're putting things out there, what you can say, like use this for this kind of a problem or use this for this kind of a challenge. And I guess that's always sort of a tightrope that you have to walk, right?
Oh, always, always.
So how do you handle that?
Well, we have disclaimers over everything. Anytime I do a video or give any interview or information, I always say, I'm not a doctor, and this is not meant to be medical advice. And I always tell people this is my own opinion from my own experience.
Right.
I started using this when I was 14,
Right.
and I've raised my kids on it, and now my grandkids use it, and this, I feel like my experience is 40 years rich. So I just have to be careful what I say, and I think I need to encourage people to use their common sense and educate themselves. It's not just, don't trust what I say, do some of your own due diligence too.
Right.
I think that's a missing piece that people, they just
people
trust.
should actually take responsibility for what they're going to do.
Yeah, right.
What a concept.
I know, that's a good concept.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. I mean, first of all, I had this in my home for a while. My wife introduced me to it, and I can remember the first experience of it. I didn't get a rash, thank goodness. Although if I got one, there was a reason for it. Right?
Yeah, and most people don't get it. So yeah.
So, but ultimately, really interesting. To go from me being a consumer, seeing this on my shelf in my house, to walking in and actually going, oh, this is where this stuff comes from, and having visited varying nutritional manufacturing plants in the big places, the Wildcrafted family-owned approach, and just seeing it in action gives me a much more respect and appreciation for the product that I have. So thank you for letting us peek behind the curtain and see how all this works.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's really, we love what we do so much. I mean, we have literally made with love on our bottles because we put love into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I loved being on site in the midst of the work that was being done that Jane Barlow Christensen leads. I trust that you enjoyed this interview. When it comes to supplementation, there are many lenses that we can be looking through and should be looking through. One of them is from the executive context. Up next is Robert Craven, who is the CEO of Megafood, a very big nutraceutical company. So he gives the context of the business side of supplementation and what you need to understand there. Robert, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Sure.
So tell us about your background. How did you get into the nutrition industry?
I met a guy named Jordan Rubin in 1999 through the church. He had a small business doing about $2 million in sales out of his home in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. It was a baggie of probiotics that saved his life, which a lot of the stories in the supplement industry start with that kind of story. He had 9 employees. R&D was the kitchen. I think customer service was the bathroom, and finance was in the master bedroom. And he had a vision, and I helped him put his vision down on paper and built a 3-year plan, just as a friend. And then 3 years later, he called me up and said, I hit the target. I hit the growth objectives. He had grown from $2 million out of his home to 40 employees, $15 million, and that was right on plan. And he said, now what? And I said, well, why don't you hire me? And hire me as CEO. And he was 27 and I was 34, and we didn't know any better. And So we started working on Garden of Life, and I fell in love with the industry. Most of the folks in the natural products industry, we would call it natural products industry, supplement industry, are doing it for all the right reasons. So when you meet a health food store owner, for example, they're in it to help people. Right. They're not in it just to make a lot of money. And a lot of the brands, the early pioneer brands, are in it for the same reason. So I just fell in love with that ethos. I've got a background with strategy consulting and Procter & Gamble and things like that. So the very left brain, logical process orientation of consumer packaged goods. And then the right brain, everybody in the natural products industry is a hugger, and they do it for the right reasons. There's motivation. So I just fell in love with the industry, and that was back in really 1999, but formally in 2003, and I've been in it ever since.
So the whole industry seems a bit confusing. So many products, so many recommendations, so many people making claims about what's the best thing and the best sources and the best types of supplements. How would a consumer sort this stuff out?
It's really complicated. Very easy to get into business in the supplement space. So there's several things I look for when I'm buying a supplement. One is recommendation. So typically health food stores in particular are more trained than a retailer. If you go into a health food store, they've been trained by the brands to know the differences and why this one's more expensive and why this ingredient is better for you and the science behind this or that. So if you really want to go deep and understand the brands, I recommend a health food store. They can really help you go deep on that. There's some general guidelines around supplements that you might see at a grocery store, for example. In today's grocery store, you've got a kind of buy one, get one free, $10, $9 type of brand, some great brands out there. So Nature Made is really known for their USP seal, which is a third-party certifier of quality, but they're still called an isolated supplement, meaning they're making their ingredients in a lab and putting it in a pill, and you're getting a certain amount of vitamin C, for example, but that vitamin C is made in a lab. It's standardized, it's quality, et cetera. The next level we call food-based. And that's where you might take that vitamin C and mix it with some orange powder, okay? Mix that together. Now the orange powder is more expensive to make, so it's maybe $5 more. Call it $10, $15 in that range. If you add another $5 or $10, now you're in the range of a whole food supplement. And a lot of people want to buy whole food supplements because they're made from food. So
what are the advantages of an isolated versus food-based versus whole food?
Well, if you think about your body, when you eat that orange, now my previous job, we would put the whole orange in, so we don't typically eat the skin. But when you eat that orange, there's over 40,000 cofactors in an orange. There's more than just the vitamin C.
40,000.
40,000, and they're discovering new ones, right? All the time. So what man has said is that the one cofactor, vitamin C, is the one that we need, to get rid of scurvy, et cetera. So whole food supplement companies would say, no, it's not about the one. The body recognizes all of it. They recognize it as food, not an isolated ingredient. So it's harder to manufacture a whole food supplement because it takes extra steps to integrate in vitamin C into the orange, or like a pure blueberry or a pure turmeric. You've heard, turmeric is very big. So to manufacture that and to dry it a certain way to make sure that you maintain all those phytonutrients, the smell, the color that makes it real food, that's what a whole food supplement's going to give you, is that different level. So the difference in price might be $15 for a month's supply, $10 down here, or even buy one, get one free, you get 2 months for that, versus $25. But there's a lot of folks who believe that it's easier on their stomach because your body's recognizing it as food. Some people can't take those isolated supplements. So that just, if you're shopping out there, just remember there's really 3 different levels. There's kind of an isolated supplement, and there's high quality brands there. And then there's that middle level, food-based, and then there's the highest level, which is kind of a whole food supplement that's made with food, real food, whole food.
And in essence, would you say a general rule is you get what you pay for, or is there more to it than that?
I think it has to do with the person, right? So if you can't afford $25 a month, certainly take a supplement. There's tons and tons of science out there that says take a multi, take your omega, take your probiotic, right? But if you find that when you take a multi at that level, it's tough on your system and it hurts your compliance. So if you want to stop taking the multi. Another good example is iron. So iron is, I think 64 million American women are low in iron, whether they know it or not, which affects, can affect depression or mood or, fatigue. But when you take an isolated iron supplement, it is really hard on the stomach, major digestive issues. So compliance is really low. So a whole food iron would integrate that, with my previous company, we would integrate that with beets. We would integrate those because beets are a good source of iron.
Right.
We'd integrate that iron in, and now, the study that was done on that product showed no side effects because now the body recognizes it as food. So, everybody's got a different taste level. I think the folks that are looking for premium will pay premium. A lot of the folks that pay for that premium supplement feel the benefit because they feel like you're getting more uptake, versus you've heard the old adage, you pee out half of what you take.
Is that true?
It can be, depending on the ingredient. So, for example, you might take mega doses of a particular ingredient, and if you're seeing that it's coming out, then you're getting some of it, but you're not getting all of it.
Well, like some of the philosophy I hear is, your body's going to take what it needs and it's going to eliminate the rest. Is that valid, or is it maybe that the bioavailability, because of the form of it, is not as good?
I don't have any science that supports that one way or another. I'm not aware of any. The science that we did on the whole food supplement side had a lot to do with the side effects, had a lot to do with that piece of it. And bioavailability is certainly something that's being looked into from a scientific standpoint. Just takes lots and lots of money. The big thing to recognize is a lot of the best supplement brands, premium ones in particular, have been small for many years, right? They came up through health food stores. They're just now starting to hit the shelves in mass with the big players, the Centrums and the Nature Maids and Nature's Bounties of the world. The more premium supplements are just now starting to hit that scale. So you're starting to see more and more of those companies do the kinds of studies needed to show bioavailability. Most of the sales in the past have been kind of on anecdotal evidence. It feels better for me. I want to support farmers. So some of the brands I've worked with introduces the farmer, and it's regenerative agriculture and organic. And so you want to vote with your dollars and support that kind of lifestyle. So think non-GMO and regenerative agriculture and climate change. So a lot of folks support the brands that support that as well. So there's a bit of a bias towards brands that are doing good in the world. And so you get some of that as well in some of these premium, because we are able to go a little bit deeper and show what's behind the product, including the farm.
Yeah. So with that, is transparency something that is at an appropriate level in the supplement world, or do you think there needs to be more?
I think transparency needs to be driven by the consumer. And if you're a smart consumer, you'll demand transparency. So for the premium brand that I worked with, we put 12 24/7 live HD cameras throughout our facility. So a lot of the smaller brands, most of the smaller brands, are co-manufacturing. And so co-manufacturers are not going to allow cameras in their facility, but because we were manufacturing all of our product out of New Hampshire, we were able to actually put cameras right on the dryer and right on the tablet press and right in the lab. So we put cameras throughout, and so people could show up any time of the day or night.
So you can go to your website and actually look at the manufacturing occurring?
Yes, live, yeah. And so that's big for the consumer, right? Because they're like, wow, they don't have anything to hide.
Right.
What's really interesting is, again, if you go back to that health food store, they'll tell you who manufactures their product and who doesn't. And the people that aren't manufacturing their product or co-manufacturing, there's nothing wrong with that. There's some great co-manufacturers. But the brand really needs to take the extra step to go deeper on the quality, because you're basically just writing a check over to the co-manufacturer and getting the product. So are they doing audits, and how are they doing those audits of the co-manufacturer? Are they checking all the ingredients? We had by law to check all the ingredients coming in and the finished goods going out. We would check throughout the process.
By law, you're talking about this is regulatory law that
absolutely
that mandates
GMP
this.
facility. GMP, we get inspected by FDA twice a year. In fact, at my previous company, we would actually report the FDA reports live, transparent, so that people could see, what the FDA found in our facilities and how we fixed it.
Which company was this?
Megafood.
Megafoods. And this is where you said they did their own manufacturing, I guess?
Yes.
So what is the distinction there? So you're saying some people, they use contract manufacturers. What's the difference between that and what you did at Megafoods?
Megafood would buy fresh, frozen, primarily organic produce from across North America from farmers that we partnered with. We bring that produce in, and we would manufacture over 40 different ingredients that we would put in 130 different products. And those ingredients would be a combination of just food or food and supplements or a yeast-based mineral. So the yeast would pre-digest the minerals and make it easier on the body to absorb. So things like iron and calcium. So we manufacture our own ingredients from the food, and then we would manufacture our own products there in New Hampshire. It's a 45-year-old company.
Wow.
So it took several years to tweak these ingredients. So a lot of love and attention goes into it, and the company uses a dryer system that's very different and unique. It's called a window refractance dryer. 50-foot long bed, very slow, very low heat, and the goal is to maintain all the phenolics. So the smell, the taste, the color, that gets lost in other drying techniques. But the goal was to get as close to food as possible so that your body would, take more of the supplement.
So maybe this is a part of transparency too, because you're saying, hey, you're starting with the source and moving all the way through to what's in the bottle. Is there, or should there be, concern about source materials that maybe is coming from places like China, that people are using?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It has everything to do with the supplier. So, I met with our Chinese supplier this morning. He's a good friend. So we visited China. We audit them. We go deep with them. So it's a bell curve. Everything is a bell curve. On the one end of the bell curve, you've got these amazing suppliers who are family-run businesses in China and go deep on organic certifications and track everything from a quality standpoint all the way to the shipment to the U.S. or to New Hampshire in our case. So you got these great suppliers, and then there's these horrible suppliers over here, right, on the bell curve, and there's everything in between. And it's really up to the company to make sure that they're driving the quality needed and checking all the boxes to make sure that the supplements, the ingredients they're getting are what they say they are. And a company like Megafood would turn back product to ingredient suppliers to the point where now you don't turn back hardly any because they're sending you the good stuff.
Right.
And those brands that aren't necessarily testing the ingredients coming in, or where it's going to a co-man that might not be testing as deeply, it's easier for that supplier to route product quality to the different areas. But everything's a bell curve in every industry, everywhere. So there's going to be great brands and bad brands and everything in between. You see what I mean? Same thing with ingredient suppliers. Great ingredients, So it's that brand trust is what's important, being able to understand the brand. Certifications are good, non-GMO project certification, USDA organic. These are certifications on the bottle that say that the company's gone to a different level to ensure the quality. So looking for those certifications is also very important.
You're describing in part some family-run businesses, and they're probably multi-generational family-run businesses. But I'm also noticing a lot of private equity investments coming into the nutrition industry. That whole channel is starting to be flooded with a bunch of dollars.
Yes.
Are you seeing a degradation of the product that's put out once a family-run business is kind of sold to an investment bank?
Or a strategic investor.
Yeah.
So, that's an interesting question. I don't think the quality is degrading in general. I think it's more how they make products. So when you reach a certain size company, the focus can shift from just sales growth to profitability. And one of the major ways to drive profitability is in the gross margin, and that's where the cost of goods come in.
Right.
So it's very easy to futz with cost of goods, a cheaper quality ingredient. So just like at the butcher, you got A, B, and C quality. You can go from A quality ingredient to C quality ingredient. That's a way to tweak gross margin. Or you can say, hey, we don't need to run that one down the dryer. We'll buy it as a powder over here. You can make those little decisions. So what we try to do at Megafood, and other companies are good at this as well, is just be very transparent. Where are our ingredients made? How are we making them? Let me show you how it's made. Here's a video. So tell those stories.
Right.
And that's where it gets back on the consumer to vote with their dollars to try to find those brands that go out of their way to show their quality, because it is more expensive to have a quality product. And if you're looking for a cheap product, you'll get a cheap product. So it's a bell curve. But I want to remind everyone the industry is regulated. I mean, we're regulated under good manufacturing processes and practices. So even the co-manufacturers are governed by that and get inspected. And then DSHEA tells us what we can and can't say. The Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act tells us what we can and can't say on the bottle. That's why you'll see on the bottle the structure function claims. Helps an already healthy immune system or whatever. So that's the biggest misconception I think we face in the industry, is that it's unregulated, the unregulated dietary supplement industry.
Yeah, which is a misnomer.
100%. Because I've been inspected many times. So yeah, it's definitely a misnomer.
So with the products that you had developed in the companies that you worked in, and looking at where we are today, what do you think are some of the more important nutritional supplements that people are taking? What were you providing out there saying, hey, this is something that's a need, in our current culture?
Well, there's several. I mentioned iron, huge problem, low iron, and the problem with iron is compliance, as I mentioned. So people can take an iron pill, but they don't keep taking it because of the side effects.
And the solution to that is getting one that's maybe either a whole food or a food-based iron supplement.
Correct.
Yeah.
As a way to minimize the side effects, if you're having side effects problems. Another one is vitamin C. Believe it or not, there are millions of people across the United States who are vitamin C deficient. We're not getting our veggies. If you're not eating your veggies, you're likely to be vitamin C deficient. Another huge deficiency is vitamin D. So millions and millions of people. It's funny, I just took a blood test on my vitamin levels, and my vitamin D was too high. I was taking too much vitamin D, which is also a problem. So, dialing in on that. So C, D, omegas, there's lots and lots of studies behind the lack of omegas, which are critical for brain development, especially in young kids. So the CDC did a study just a few years ago that outlined the millions of people that are deficient on these letter vitamin B, B12, the whole B line, you can be deficient in that. Luckily, there's a big move in the industry and outside the industry towards personalization. So I'm working with a company that does a urine test that checks your vitamin and mineral levels. And there's blood tests you can do. You can even take a DNA test that'll say your proclivity towards being low in these vitamins exists. So I think that's the big move, is that people are going to be able to dial in the supplements they take. So I personally take, 6-8 supplements a day, but I'm dialing it in. And I got this most recent blood test that said my D is too high. So I went from 5,000 IU to 1,000 IU, just to kind of dial it in. I think that's going to be great for the industry, because now you're not going to feel like you're wasting your money.
Is there much of a difference between taking them as individual supplements, like you said, the letter vitamins, C, D, E, whatever you want to take? Is there much of a difference between that and having them all together in a multivitamin?
It just depends on where you're deficient. I think that the general consensus is everyone should be taking a multi, unless you're getting your 3 squares a day and you're eating organic fruits and vegetables with every meal. You're likely to be deficient in something. So having a multi is just a great insurance policy, just a really good multi every single day. And then if you have the means to spend $99 to do a personalization test and to do the blood testing to figure out kind of dialing it in exactly where it needs to be, I highly recommend it. It's worth it. Because if you are low in vitamin B, for example, you're not getting enough in that multi. It's got enough of a lot of things crammed into that pill. But if you're low on any one thing, and what people do today, it's hit or miss. If I'm low in energy, I might take a vitamin B. I take a vitamin B complex, kind of a variety of Bs, and it helps my energy. So I feel that energy with that. So even though I haven't done the testing, I can feel the result of the vitamin B that I'm taking. So I take vitamin B. And I've read enough of the science on turmeric, and I've got arthritis in my wrist, so I take turmeric every day, and it helps my wrist. And when I forget my baggie of vitamins and I go to LA, I can feel it, so you can feel the difference. And if you're not feeling the difference with your vitamin, then you're probably deficient in something. And a good naturopathic doctor or integrative MD can help you dial it in and make some recommendations. And health food stores are actually really good at that as well. If I'm feeling tired, have you tried this? Have you tried that? So it's hit or miss right now, but as we move more and more towards personalization, people will know exactly what they're deficient in or what you're over in my case, vitamin D.
Do you think it makes a difference between a capsule versus a tablet versus maybe a liquid form?
Nope.
No,
there's no science that supports that. I mean, it's funny. I see the capsule guys say the tablets are bad, and the tablet guys say the capsules are bad. But the point is that you've got stomach acid, and there's motility in your digestive system that breaks all that stuff up. So, I've seen people throw a capsule and a tablet in a glass of water and say, see, that one's dissolving fat, but that's not. It's a glass of water.
It's not.
So in your body, there's really no difference between the two.
So what are you seeing looking down the road now in the future? Where are the trends?
So there's personalized nutrition, which would basically be, I take a test at home, I send it away, that test gives me some results, and there's a recommendation on what to buy, and I might buy it. I think where it's all going eventually is another term, precision nutrition. So precision is really dialing it in. I'm working with a company that is creating a machine that'll sit on the side of your toilet, and not to be too out there, but you pee on the stick in your toilet, and it automatically reads your vitamins and minerals, tells the app, and within 2 days you get a pill pack
Wow.
where you now the app has told it exactly what you need to take for the next month, and you pee on it again in a month, and you get the next pack.
I was going to say, it probably has to be redone fairly periodically because, as things start to change, you got to adapt.
Right. So monthly, weekly if you want. But then we're actually doing some stuff with some technology where you can actually 3D print your powder. So think about a HP printer that's got 9 or 10 different supplements in it. And so based on your pee test that day, it'll actually print you a glass that you can throw into water or a smoothie or whatever, exactly what you need in home. So not only in-home testing and in-home lab, but in-home delivery. And then when one of those little cartridges gets low, it automatically tells the Wi-Fi and you get another cartridge before it goes low. So precision nutrition is really where it's going, to the level of, do I need 10 milligrams of this or 50 milligrams? So that's where it's really going, which I think is good for the industry. I mean, people are going to be taking what they need to take, which is going to make them feel better and healthier, which is ultimately good for the industry.
That sounds like it would dramatically change everything because, as far as, distribution, retail space, all that, that all kind of gets upended with what you're describing. How far away are we from that?
Well, we're probably 3 or 4 years away. Some of this testing is launching next month, and minimum viable product in terms of the testing, but everything's a bell curve, and these guys on this end of the bell curve are the early adopters, and they've got the money to spend on something like that. And the more people that spend on it, the cheaper it gets. And so over time, it'll get cheaper and cheaper, and it'll become easier to put into a home. I think we're way far out from not having bottles on a shelf somewhere. But of course, Amazon and the online retailers have disrupted retail pretty good in terms of the growth. The thing about Amazon, which is really interesting, or e-commerce online, is supplements are very stable to ship, cheap to ship, and it also ships in monthly installments. So a bottle's a month. So auto shipping has kind of put a dent in a lot of things. But still, 60% or better are bought in a store. And I highly recommend health food stores only because they're trained. They can talk you through some stuff. You're not sitting in front of a sea of bottles kind of trying to read them and what do I want? I've seen that day in and day out. So or a naturopathic doctors, you can go online and find a naturopathic doctor in your area that'll really dial it in for you, which can be very valuable. You spend a little bit of money up front to get exactly what you need. But if you don't want to go that route, absolutely take a multi, just at a minimum. And then the other two people always recommend is the omega and the probiotic.
Anything that people should avoid when it comes to supplements or choosing supplements?
I think people should be very leery of brands that are promising too much. If it sounds too good to be true, I can 100% guarantee you it is too good to be true. So whether it's weight loss or erectile dysfunction or hair loss or any of that, if people are making claims that sound too good to be true, then they're probably a fly-by-night company. They're not putting the time and effort into the quality it takes to really make a great supplement that can help you. I would say be leery of that.
So there's a lot of talk about blockchain and its applications. Do you see any future role for that in supplements?
I don't see cryptocurrency hitting to where you can actually buy supplements with it, but it's an interesting question. We sponsored it was called Smart Farms, and we brought some folks together. We brought retailers, natural retailers. We brought some supplement companies. We brought some food companies, Ben & Jerry's, people that are involved in agriculture. We brought a farmer, and then we brought blockchain experts and ag tech experts, and to tackle this question. And the beautiful thing about blockchain is it's a one-to-one connection. So I think you'll start to see blockchain as early as this year in terms of tracking supply chain. So chain of command, a lot of these ingredients that we deal with, especially agricultural ingredients, touch a lot of people. So transparency of supply chain, there'll be blockchain applications. And then the other will be creating a connection with the farmer. One of the things we were trying to do is promote regenerative agriculture, which is basically a way to take care of the soil such that you sequester carbon, and in sequestering carbon, you limit climate change. But taking care of the soil can be monitored by these ag tech tools. So if you've got these ag tech tools that are in the ground monitoring the soil, and the soil is healthy, we're willing to pay more for that and tell our consumer about that. And that connects you via blockchain, because I can say, if this farmer, then we will pay you X. And so when the technology tells us they hit the right soil level, the blockchain contract will pay automatically. So it's really going to be more on the back end. One of the things we were thinking of testing at MegaFood was Tip Your Farmer. So you can literally, with blockchain, tip a farmer directly from the bottle, in an app, and the farmer gets it. There's no middleman. So there was a lot of different things we were thinking about from a blockchain standpoint, but I would think from a consumer standpoint, it's going to be more on the back end. And you'll start to see companies use that as a part of their overall transparency message.
Yeah.
You can track our supply chain here, and you can verify that it's true because we're doing it on the blockchain. So it's going to lend more credence to those brands that want to use it from a transparency standpoint.
Very fascinating, because a lot of the things that you just described, kind of the chain of custody makes sense, but getting into interaction where a consumer can reward behavior they like in farming, just through tipping isn't
that cool?
That's like really cool.
That could be really cool.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that less than probably 30-40% of the supplements out there use agricultural. I mean, they use produce.
Right.
The vast majority are using isolated supplements that are grown in a lab.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. It's just, the one cofactor, right?
Right.
So the ones that are taking the extra step to actually work with farmers and to go deep on that, that's why it's more expensive. And that's why, getting back to the earlier point, some people want to vote with their dollars and support those kinds of brands that are supporting a deeper connection back into community and small farmers and organic and non-GMO and regenerative. That's a part of it. There's a feel good to that.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That we want to support, and if the product doesn't work, people won't take it. So ultimately, the product's got to work as well.
Well, Robert, fascinating view of things.
Cool.
Really appreciate you coming and sharing that all with us, and I wish you success with all your future endeavors.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
There are many facets to this world of supplementation, and understanding how executives run and lead these companies that you're buying supplements from is a very important thing. I was happy to share this with you. Congratulations, you've now completed episode 4. Man, I am very impressed that you're taking this information seriously, that you're watching these interviews, and that you're having it have an impact on your life. It's really a privilege to be able to spend this time with you. Episode 5 is going to be coming up soon, and let me tell you, there's some powerful things there. One more time, I want to remind you, you can own Supplements Revealed, have access to this information, and it's not only for you, but people that you care about. Whenever they have certain challenges and they're looking for natural solutions, you will have this asset available to you for years to come, and it will keep paying dividends to you. So again, thanks for being here. Looking forward to seeing you in episode 5.
We're moving into all the areas of wellness to fill in a lot of the gaps that are there. And really our dream is to have natural medicine fulfill its potential, where it is the dominant source of wellness and you're only turning to mainstream when you really need something acute done.
Well, my business practice for the last 15 years has been documenting what's inside these products, this evolution to substantiated combinations that really can be shown to help your health is a field that is growing by leaps and bounds.
Every ingredient that is used in a product should have a certificate of analysis. But to take that a step further and do a batch test on a finished product, that is very unusual.
Right.
So not every company does that. The better companies do, but all of the small, probably fly-by-nights that you might see on Amazon, the vast majority are not doing that.